Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and welcome to the Bonus Bonanza, where I talk about something that I couldn't have brought up at the time I did the original commentary, nor at the time of the review, but in 2017, as you're seeing here with these two videos that I borrowed from the YouTubers Gyromancy and Rodolfo Nunez, I apologize for mispronouncing your name, but he did go by Rocker666, so yeah. Part of why I'm horribly stealing these videos is because, yeah, as you're seeing here, these are some of the unused monsters that never made it into the final game of Silent Hill. And I thought this was interesting to bring up because, well, yeah, unused content that I didn't know about up until 2017 and now know here, with the butterfly enemies, which you did actually see scrawled on the wall of Alessa's bedroom in the little nowhere section where you saw her crying after being beaten by Dahlia, so yeah, it's quite interesting to see that there were some cut monsters that didn't make the final cut, and as you can imagine, in the wake of, you know, people finding out about all this, they did actually ask Masahiro Ito online to see if he had anything to say about it, but yeah, allegedly he didn't actually remember designing any of these monsters, which leads me to believe that, well, yeah, either these were designed by Naoki Sato, or he legitimately just doesn't really remember what he designed. But in this case, you can see a lot more of the animalistic influences of Silent Hill's creature design sort of make their way here. Again, you saw beforehand with the, you know, the butterfly, and now here we have these stingray-looking enemies, and you'll be noticing that we tend to have a little bit more, I mean, again, we do have some terrestrial, you know, land-based creatures, but we also have a lot more water-based enemies, so yeah, quite curious. It either leads me to believe that these were either meant for the sewer area of the game, or perhaps we might have had a little bit more to do with the lakeside area where we actually would have crossed, you know, terrain with the boat, which does make me wonder, you know, how exactly things would have been playable. Could Sybil have potentially been playable? Or were these just cut enemies that potentially Harry could have fought against and just didn't for whatever reason? I mean, it wouldn't be the first time something like this happened, actually. I believe a similar instance happened in Silent Hill 2, where the developers felt like they designed too many enemies for the game, and as a result figured that, well, you know, they could have done with a bit less, you know, I guess hence cutting the naked bodies and teddy bear enemies for James and Eddie, but anyway, these are the frog enemies. Yes, and they seem to be sort of developing from tadpoles to frogs, by the looks of things here, so, yeah, who knows, it kind of looks like a bit of an offshoot of the split head, actually, so, yeah, despite being very PS1 and abstracted, it's actually quite fascinating. I will say, though, that it is a bit of a shame we never got to see these enemies really come to fruition, but yeah, it is still nice to see after all these years. All the same, though, like, I mean, in terms of symbolism, they do seem fairly par for the course. I mean, you could easily see either this being Alessa's fascination / fear of animals, or I guess simply tying into the whole birthing god metaphor, which actually does come in the form of actually one cut. At least what I believe to be was a cut boss fight intended for where the Splithead arena was, that you'll be seeing right towards the end, but in this case we also have this thing. A Muki. I don't think it's meant to be a monkey, maybe it was mistranslated, or maybe it's a Japanese name for what appears to be like either an earlier version of the Groaner enemies, or I'm not really too sure what the fuck it's meant to be here. It looks more like a... I don't really know what to call it. It looks more like an anteater mixed with like a dog's body, really, so I don't know, maybe that's just the graphics screwing with me, but whatever, really. Anyway, part of the reason why I'm just sort of having gambit speculations of whatever, really, throughout this video is partially because, well, this bonus video exists to purely give my thoughts on some of the unused creature designs, but in turn, I'm also genuinely curious. I mean, if Masahiro Ito doesn't have the details on these monsters, then I don't know, maybe Keiichiro Toyama, or perhaps Naoki Sato, if she did design these monsters, would probably have a bit more information for us, so yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can contact them, like, online via social media or whatever, but I don't know, it would be cool if we could get some of their thoughts on this. And, this, of course, being an ostrich enemy. It's actually very freaky looking, and kind of like an early appearance of the non-bodies, actually, from Silent Hill 3, but yeah. I don't know, it just really ties in with a lot of Keiichiro Toyama's horror philosophy, I find, where they take mundane elements like a lot of these, you know, natural creatures that we see in the real world, but just sort of abstractify them, make them look a little bit off, and god, therein lies the success, really, because a lot of these creature designs, I feel, are honestly really fucking good. Like, I mean, some of them do obviously suffer from, you know, the PS1 graphical limitations, obviously, but in a way, I don't know, its abstract shape kind of gives it a bit more form, really. Yes, SNK, finally. Konami and SNK, together at last. I'm lying. Yeah, these snake enemies, I think maybe I can see why they might have been cut out, because Resident Evil often had very similar concepts with the, you know, the yawn and, like, it's similar ilk giving you the poison status, but I don't know, it's, it would have been curious to see how these enemies would have played out. I mean, they probably would have been, like, very basic sort of attack pattern kind of things, but, it's, strange, really. I also get the impression that maybe some of these enemies might have been utilized in a very similar concept akin to, like, the parasite that you do genuinely see on the puppet nurses, of which they actually did have a few earlier models, and as we're going to be seeing right here, actually, we're also going to be witnessing a few early models themselves, particularly that of the Grey Children and the larval stalker enemies, which, again, you actually can see this in very early 1998 E3 trailers of Silent Hill, but this here will actually show you that in the game files, there are still the textures of the monsters that you would have seen in the 1998 demo disc. Yeah, in this case, pretty much the early two children models, so yeah, I guess maybe this might have been what people had a problem with in terms of, you know, the actual texture work, but as you will be seeing once we get a better look at it, yeah, the larval stalkers did in fact have texture models, as did, you know, the Grey Children themselves. It's just that they were then eventually altered to look, well, less like children and have less of a face. So yeah, I mean, they still kept the gaping mouth area, it's just that, I don't know, I guess by removing their eyes, everybody was cool with it, at least in the US. But anyway, moving on to the final part of this video that I really want to talk about is the chicken enemy. Basically, it's pretty much the equivalent of like a preborn fledgling, and yeah, you know, it's freshly hatched, and it's very much a fetal in utero thing. It's like eating a little bit of a balut, except you know, it's scary. Oh, and it can apparently trip you over. I finally get to show off that animation in Silent Hill. Yeah, that's Harry's clutchiness coming in with the animations, and yeah, it actually has attack animations. And you get to see Harry die as he is murdered by the chicken. But anyway, that's all I really wanted to show, so on that note, I'm Solidus-Skully. I hope you enjoyed the Silent Hill commentary. See you later.